Greg, welcome. Why do you have a unique perspective on AI?
So what I'll share today is not theory. I think that's going to be valuable.
Greg Shove is an AI strategist, CEO, and transformative leader helping organizations unlock real value from artificial intelligence. Greg believes that effective AI adoption requires strategy, change leadership, and using AI as a thought partner to augment human decision-making and performance.
Well, first of all, I was a seven-time founder in Silicon Valley, and so that's when I played with ChatGPT Plus for a few hours and realized that this would be the new accelerant. For 3 years, all we've heard about from media is the AIs are coming for us. They're coming for our jobs. And so if you've been told that, what's the motivation? Is this an arms race?
How do they eliminate this fear factor, and can they?
Let's sort of be honest in some roles. That's not a good way to make a living anymore. I think for leaders, we need to just be honest. So I'm really upfront with the team. In a year, some teams will be the same size, doing more work. I think AI is the best thing for young people.
I think exactly the same way, to be honest.
If they have ambition, if they want to work. I really don't think it's that hard. I think about it as, can OpenAI build 5 applications in 10 years that are indispensable to humanity?
Greg, welcome, all the way from the US. For those who are listening, can you tell them why this is going to be an interesting conversation? Why do you have a unique perspective on AI?
I think it's because I spent so much time talking to enterprise AI leaders. We have 100 customers at Section AI, plus I just spent a lot of time on the road, mostly in the US, but also here in Europe and elsewhere, just talking to people who are trying to figure out how to get AI to work inside their organizations. So what I'll share today is not theory and sort of predictions. I'll share what we're learning and what I'm learning kind of on the ground every day talking to AI leaders. So I think that's going to be valuable.
Yeah, people who are actually in the trenches doing this every day, it is rare, and they don't have the time to speak because everything is going bananas at the moment. Let's circle back a little bit. Who are you? What have you been doing the last couple of years? And talk us a little bit more about this practical side of AI that you've been through.
Well, first of all, I was a 7-time founder in Silicon Valley, so moved to Palo Alto from Toronto. So I'm Canadian, now American, lots of startups, the pretty typical track record, some flame outs and a couple of hits. This latest company, we're venture backed. We had to pivot the company basically 2.5, 3 years ago. And so that's when I played with ChatGPT Plus for a few hours and realized that this would be the new accelerant for people, teams, and organizations. And it was pretty much on that day that I said, okay, we need to pivot this business. We had a good business, not a great business, and I thought if we could really sort of get inside this AI wave, we would make a good business a lot better and grow faster. So that's what we did, and we became Section AI. And I decided that we'd help leaders and their teams deploy AI as efficiently and as effectively as possible, which has been much harder, I think, than all of us expected.
Of course. That's the thing I also work with quite a lot is, I've been AI my whole life as well. And the thing that I initially thought when this technology came out is, great, we can do anything now. But it seems to be in a number of problems around the last mile. Companies actually thinking about what to do with it and then actually implementing the damn thing correctly. Everyone just seems to lose a lot of common sense for some reason. So let's walk through that a little bit. What's going on in terms of enterprise adoption versus personal adoption? Why is there such a disparity between the two? And what's going to happen in the future? What kind of implications does that have for the AI companies themselves? Yeah,
well, I think first of all, it's what you just said, like it. What is it when you think about AI? It is so many things. And I think that's actually one of the roots of the problem or the challenge is that it can be so many different things inside the enterprise. And when we use it at home, we know what it is. It's a recipe helper, and it's a coach, it's a therapist, it's a travel planner. I spent the whole holidays talking to people, and I'm sure you did, and everybody had amazing personal use cases for AI, right? We're telling stories at the dining room table about how they were using AI for any kind of personal use case. And you ask them about work, and then they had this blank stare on their face, not so much at work, right? Because I think it's this sort of omnipowerful but unreliable technology. And so it works for us in our personal lives. If it doesn't give us the best exercise advice, it gives us good exercise advice, and it's free. right? If it's not the best coach or therapist, it's still always available, and it's a pretty good one, right? And again, when we bring it into work, we freeze a bit. Like, is it going to be reliable? Is it going to hallucinate? Will it make a mistake? In where should I use it in my work? Should I outsource stuff to it? Should it make me smarter? I just think we just get all the choice starts to overwhelm us, and then we add in the anxiety.
Yeah.
For 3 years, all we've heard about from media is the AIs are coming for us. They're coming for our jobs. And I just think we've vastly underestimated. We were naive as leaders about the level of anxiety that's in the workforce. And I think it's at all levels. I talked to a VP at one of the largest tech companies in the world recently who said that her VPs were struggling to move at a pace that she wanted in terms of adopting AI. And she realized it was because they were worried about their own jobs, even at that level, at the VP level, let alone the entry-level worker or the data analyst or the copywriter and the marketing team kind of thing. So I think at all levels, we've been told you're training your replacement. And so if you've been told that, what's the motivation?
Yeah, it is an interesting parallel, right? It's the elephant in the room situation, right? You introduce someone this amazing tool that can do almost anything, and you kind of don't tell them, but maybe you might be replaced by this. But I'm finding that some of the best companies are seeing it as more as augmentation than replacement. I've seen very few companies. You can actually go down the path of I'm going to replace half of my workforce. You could do that if you had that as a goal. But I'm seeing a lot of companies augmenting their staff, growing the client base, growing the number of markets they operate in with AI. They've taken the approach of growing the pie rather than trying to slice the cost piece of it.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. Let's talk about the fear element here, because end of the day, if someone is scared of the technology, they're not going to adopt it, almost play dumb in some ways or put barriers in place. I've seen that many times. I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
What's your advice around how companies can get around that? How do they eliminate this fear factor, and can they?
Yeah, I mean, I think they can. I think in certain roles you probably can, right? Let's sort of be honest in some roles. Human translators, that's not a good way to make a living anymore. Yeah. So if you were a human translator working in a large company, someone probably should have come to you and said, your job is going away probably in 90 days, right? Not in a year or 2 or 3, but like tomorrow. Yeah. But for most of us, you're right, that's not happening. In fact, the data shows that there isn't yet significant job loss happening in the knowledge economy due to AI. So it's really more of a misplaced fear or anxiety at this point. I think for leaders, we need to just be honest. What I tell my team is that we need to keep adopting and using AI. We're an AI company, so obviously we're using AI every day, probably every hour, almost every team member, and I'm not satisfied. Meaning, I want us to be using AI even more, get more efficient, get more productive, create new products and services that don't exist. To your point, grow rather than just cut. But I also need to tell the team, well, what's the outcome of that? And what I tell the team is the outcome is the following: in a year, some teams will be the same size, doing more work. Some teams will be smaller. We likely will have made that team smaller because we're doing the same amount of work with less people. Sure. Some teams will actually be bigger because with AI, that team is so effective. I want more of that team. And for me, the classic example is software engineers. As a CEO, my roadmap is I'm never on time with my roadmap. Right? And even with every engineer using a coding copilot, I'm still behind on my roadmap. I want more engineers. If they can be this productive, 2 or 3x productive with AI, I want actually more engineers, not less. And in fact, our engineering team at Section is growing. It's more productive than ever, and we're adding more engineers.
Yeah.
So I'm really upfront with the team. Some teams will be the same size. Some teams will be smaller, not likely by that much, and some teams will be bigger. And if we all do this together, we'll figure it out together. And if you are impacted by this, at the very least, you're going to be AI enabled. And so if you're not going to work here, you'll work somewhere else, and you'll leave with a set of skills that you didn't have before. So I'm just kind of pretty upfront about it. It's easy in a small company.
Sure.
It's hard for a CEO of a publicly traded company to talk like that. It's hard for executives of large teams and organizations because it gets leaked to the media, within a minute. The AI memo, right? Which is talking about job cuts typically, right? Or that's the interpretation of it. But I just think we need to be upfront. And I think you're right. We need to focus on growth. I use this sort of simple framework: cut and create.
Mm-hmm.
We use AI to cut first, become more efficient, more productive. Outsource tasks to AI. Maybe with AI we can cut some vendors. Maybe we can cut some other software that we used to use. We don't need use that software anymore. We can use AI.
Sure. So
cut is an important part of AI. I think in terms of building a business case. I think we should move through that phase as fast as possible. Get everybody through that phase, because that's where all the anxiety is.
Yeah.
Because they're worried about, you'll cut my job, right? And get to the fun part, which is what you said, the create phase, the growth phase. So let's cut and let's create. And let's create new products and services and new workflows and new ways, new markets, as you said, as fast as we can. And if we do that quickly, I think people will see, no, wait a minute, this has probably got some upside here. It's not all, not all downside.
I think exactly the same way, to be honest. But as we encounter different kinds of companies, organizations. So, for instance, I do a lot of work with governments. You go to a government employer, which has hundreds of thousands of people, and the mentality of a lot of people that work in certain organizations is not kind of, okay, I'm going to take this and create a new opportunity for me. I'm going to upskill.
Right.
A lot of people go to work to collect paychecks. So I think the biggest losers are going to be the employees that go in just to pay their mortgage, and there's no passion for work. There's no passion for the objectives of the company. And the worst thing of all is that those people are going to end up being on the dole, right, receiving benefits. And are they going to then reskill then, or are we going to keep paying for them? I'm worried, Greg, because we have a demographic that's not making a lot of sense in a lot of countries. Aging population, and it's only getting bigger. In some countries like Japan, it's just becoming unsustainable. 3 generations, South Korea is going to be extinct technically if they don't solve their childbirth problems. And then we've got this group of people who are going to be made unemployed. I don't mean to bring the scaremongering back here.
Yeah.
But,
and this group, are you worried about them, these younger workers, or like more the mid-career? Like, what's your sense of what's going on?
It's not so much where they're in their careers.
Or it's more their ambition level.
More the ambition level.
Right, okay.
What's their attitude towards it.
That makes sense to me. I think about them as the bottom quarter of an organization, of a let's say a for-profit. I understand government and kind of institutional employees, but when I think about the corporate world, I think about that bottom 25% of the organization. They're going in to collect a paycheck. They're satisfied enough. They're absolutely at risk. They're at risk tomorrow. If they're in knowledge work, I think they're. I would agree with you. They're all at risk.
And also, when I look at some of the younger population, so the of age of working, but inactive employees, inactive workers, they call them. In the UK, there's a massive problem with that. I think in most countries we're having this problem because of COVID. Those younger people, younger workers, didn't get the structure of going into work, getting coached properly, and now they're having to imagine how to work in a new way. But in a company, they never really had the true experience of how it actually works. So there's also that age group, I think, that's going to get left behind, and a lot of these kids,
they're sort of underemployed, right?
Underemployed.
Right. They're maybe patching together some gig work, maybe, but not enough, right?
And we've seen a rise in things like ADHD diagnosis. We've seen a massive rise in people with autism. Digital dementia is becoming a new term now, where doom scrolling is frying your brain and things like that. So I'm worried, there's that younger generation who's not going to potentially be able to sustain things. So is it that simple? Is it that simple? There is no fear?
I don't know. That's not simple. You covered off a country that's going to go extinct because of an aging population, all the way down to dudes in their basement video gaming who don't know how to hold a job. There's a lot going on there. Yeah, listen, I think that, okay, I don't want to be the delusional optimist, but let's flip it around just for a moment. I think AI is the best thing for young people if they have ambition, if they want to work. AI allows us to break capability boundaries and constraints. And so I'm less concerned. I'm most concerned about AI's impact on the middle of the workforce. That kind of 40-something worker, because they're getting expensive and a little comfortable. And maybe picking up the paycheck kind of thing. And probably most resistant to change. And frankly, that's a stage of life where you're everyone, but a lot of people focused on paying the mortgage and
Sure.
raising the family and stuff like that. So the realities of that kind of life.
You've been beaten by family life.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Trying to get to Friday and put dinner on the table. So I think I worry about them the most, frankly, when I think about knowledge workers and the impact of AI. When I look at sort of my kids that are still able to quickly adopt these technologies and kind of bust out. Meaning if you're an engineer, you can be an engineer now and a marketer.
Sure.
I know it's the hype of AI, and so I don't want to overhype it, but I see it. Like I see it in our own team, and I see it with the young people that I hang out with, meaning young adults. I see them adding skills and capabilities that they wouldn't normally be able to add at this stage in their careers. I worry that they're not learning the basics of business, right? They don't have those apprenticeships as much as they used to have in the future, right? Like you'd spend 3 years on the PR team or the marketing team or the media buying team of an agency, and you'd learn the media buying business. And now, of course, if you learn how to operate the algorithm, you don't need to learn about the business kind of thing. So I do worry about that. Like, where's that tacit knowledge come from for younger workers? But at the same time, what I see is a product manager being able to now prototype features and apps and the roadmap, and walk over to the engineering team and saying, here's the prototype, build from this, right? Don't build from the PRD or the spec, build from the working prototype. I mean, that's just amazing.
That is a big jump.
So, when I see some of that, I'm actually pretty optimistic.
I guess what I'm trying to get to is I'm also overly optimistic about most things, because if I wasn't, I guess it wouldn't be where I am. You just got to be, right? But I think what I'm trying to get to is, AI being such a great thing is not as simple as a one statement, as an optimist would say. I would have said the same thing as you. But when you start talking to people, when you start cutting it down to different groups, different kinds of attitudes, you start seeing very quickly who are going to be the winners and the losers.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think that's right. And it'll also hit different industries at different sort of velocities. Good and bad. I mean, in terms of hitting that industry or hitting that job function. Yeah, it'll have a whole bunch of unintended consequences, and many will not be good. We know that already. Yeah, right? We're beginning to see it, and it'll obviously get worse. So yeah, I'm not Pollyannish about it. Meaning, this is a package that we're getting, right? And by the way, we didn't ask for it, right? Silicon Valley decided that we needed AI. Apparently, what Silicon Valley needed was the next big thing.
Sure.
Because Silicon Valley was maturing, big tech was basically slowing. Yeah. And they've all decided that this is the next 20 years of growth will be AI. So it's coming no matter what. Yeah. And that's sort of always been my approach to it, which is whether we want this or not, it's coming, and let's be pragmatic about it and kind of try to wrap our heads around it and manage it as best we can. Because it's not going to slow down unless the business model collapses, and we can talk about that.
We will,
if the investors lose patience, maybe this thing does slow down. But the pace it's going, it's coming everywhere pretty quickly.
I mean, you can read different reports, but if you take the more optimistic ones, $3 trillion committed to AI over the next 10 years. And I always say as well, with that much money and power behind the topic, it can two things can happen. One is it will be as magical as we think it's going to be, and maybe more, and it will fulfill all of the promises it's made, or it's going to happen anyway because investors need to get their money back somehow.
Right, absolutely.
I don't see a scenario where, AI just kind of goes away. It might get slowed down by something that happens, a disaster or a company failing, but I don't see it going away. Do you see it the same way?
I see it the same way. I think we have this moment of truth coming up, actually, which is OpenAI's financing. Apparently, they're trying to raise more money. $100 billion is rumored to be the size of the round, and Amazon is rumored to be the anchor investor with $10 billion of that $100 billion. Wow. And my sense is they have to close that by the summer of this year. If they're not able to, I do think that's a sort of a watershed moment for this version of generative AI. I would say that would cause a slowdown because there's really only two independent AI companies, maybe three if you want to include XAI, and they just raised capital recently, but we can talk about that later. Sure. XAI and whether we really want them to succeed or not, I don't. But I think about it today as the fate of Anthropic and OpenAI, their viability is critical to this moment if we want AI to continue at the current pace.
Sure.
So if OpenAI stumbles, which is I think probably a financial stumble, then I think we could see a slowdown in terms of what you just said. I think we could see, okay, let's go a little slower. I think the big guys, meaning Amazon, Google, Microsoft, are really only moving at this pace because of OpenAI.
Sure.
They don't want to go this fast.
Gotcha.
The risk to Google's business model is so significant. This is very challenging for Microsoft and Amazon in terms of the amount of capital they're having to invest. Again, this pace is being set by Sam Altman, and everybody else is following.
Sure.
So if Sam has to slow down, I think we get a reduced pace, and that we could argue that could be good for humanity.
Sure.
That
sure.
the technologies they're already out there and they work pretty well. We might see less innovation if there's a slowdown. We might see a slower pace of new product release and less data centers built. So, and again, some would argue that's a good thing, right? That we need more time because right now there is chaos, for example, in our schools.
Sure.
I think about this, Danilo, as the last normal year is a sort of a mental framework or model I've been using myself the last few months. Like, when was the last normal year for a business? And I think about it in context of AI. And you look historically from digital disruption, you can typically pinpoint the year that was the last normal year for that business or industry. And then after that, everything changed, right?
Sure.
Like even when the iPhone was released, for 2 years after, RIM was growing. BlackBerry grew for 2 more years after the release of the iPhone. That second year was their last normal year.
Gotcha.
And then everything changed after that, right?
Sure.
iPhones, exploded and BlackBerries died. Blockbuster, classifieds advertising in newspapers. You can pick probably 10 technology disruptions, and when you look back 10 years later, you can pinpoint the year where everything was the same, and then there was and then it stopped, and
Gotcha.
it was the last normal year. So when I think about this, I think about it when I think about colleges. So secondary education, the last normal year was last year. 2025 was the last normal year of education.
Wow. I'm on the board of a few education companies, so that's going to scare the living lights out of them.
Well, that depends what they're doing. If they're disrupting, but if you think about it, when you hear college professors, that UT Austin professor, I think I saw this where he was reporting that he had 300 essays submitted from 300 kids in the class, and they're all the same. So when a college professor is getting 300, that's the end of education as we know it, meaning at that college level, right? Sure. High school, I would argue for junior seniors in the United States, at least, the last 2 years of high school. Again, the last normal year was last year.
Sure.
Meaning from now on, the way those schools are teaching and the way those teachers are managing those students has to change. It's chaos.
You've unpacked something I wasn't expecting, but let's get into it. A lot of parents come to me, I'm sure they come to you as well. Anybody who's in the AI gets this question. Yeah. What should my kids go and do? Should they go to university? Should they go to college? What's your answer?
The short answer is yes. The data still says that college graduates have higher lifetime income, so better job prospects, better financial prospects, and better marriage rates, mating rates.
Oh, wow.
So we need to look at college more holistically, I think, if we can afford it.
Sure.
Right? And if we have that level of ambition to complete the college and then go and find the job. I would say, though, there are, certainly in the U.S., where most kids are graduating with about $40,000 of debt, that there are probably, I don't know what the number is, it feels like to me, like my intuition is 25% of those kids going to a 4-year college in the U.S., that kind of bottom 25%. They're at schools that are probably not really strong schools. They're not well placed to work in the knowledge economy coming from those schools, and they're leaving with $40,000 of debt.
Sure.
So I would, that group of graduates, I'd probably question, looking forward, is that the right thing to do? Maybe, or is it better to do a 2-year, more vocational program? I just think that when I see kids who spend 4 years in college, graduate with debt, and I ended up working at the Apple Genius Bar. I don't know if that was worth it, right?
Sure.
If it's just a stepping stone and they can get from the Genius Bar to somewhere else, and not to pick on the Genius Bar, think about any of those roles, right?
Sure.
Any of those kind of customer service, customer support roles as one example.
Sure.
That's an expensive college degree with a lot of debt to land that job. And I think there are probably faster, cheaper ways to be prepared for that kind of role.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Should we all be plumbers? Yeah, I don't think so. Although, everyone that comes, we just bought a house. We just moved to San Francisco from the peninsula, from Palo Alto. So we moved up north to the city in the Bay Area. And everybody that comes into the house, it doesn't matter what they're doing, they're all $250 an hour. We've had, painters, just think about any trade, think about anyone who's come to fix the alarm, fix the door, change the keys, whatever. Like everyone in San Francisco is $250 an hour. I mean, that's better than a lot of knowledge work.
Yeah.
And so when you think about it, I think it's right to question, what are your aptitudes? What are your levels of ambition? What are your income requirements? So I like to really counsel kids to think about what kind of life do you want?
Yeah.
Do you want to be in this kind of knowledge economy rat race? If you do, then you need to be well prepared for it. And that probably means a 4-year college degree and then maybe even more after that, right? Or if you want to peace out and work and live in a small town, have a great quality of life. The fastest way to become a millionaire in the United States, and I did this analysis a couple of years ago with an analyst to help me out, a data analyst to help me out. The fastest way to become a millionaire in the United States is get a job in the knowledge economy and leave the major urban centers because they're too expensive.
Sure.
Right?
The cost element is as important as the revenue element.
Exactly, right?
Yeah,
Don't live in Austin or New York or San Francisco or LA or Toronto or Vancouver.
Yeah. I mean, there's another group of people I think shouldn't go to college, and it's the hyper ambitious kid that wants to go build something, wants to build $1 billion company. Because we also get, they're basically waiting for 4 years, receiving knowledge, they're probably bored throughout the whole process because usually higher IQ, or they're highly impatient. They don't have a lot of attention span. I also think that those group of young people should not go to university either.
Yeah, I don't agree.
No?
No,
you think the college will give them structure?
Yeah, I just think that, I hear you, and we can always point to the exception.
Of course, yeah.
But let's be honest, my kids aren't Bill Gates. They're good kids, and they've got good jobs, but, they needed college. They needed college to mature. They needed college to learn some good habits, including showering and shaving. And they learned a few things. I mean, I would agree that knowledge probably was lower on the list,
sure,
versus those other kind of qualities and skills they pick up. But listen, I think that most kids shouldn't either drop out or think they're the next Bill Gates.
Sure.
Yeah, if something is compelling you that strongly, and you're 19 or 20 or whatever, in that range, and or you want to go to school and then you realize you want to start a company. Yeah, okay, maybe, but the reality is 99 out of 100 are going to fail.
Sure.
And that idea wasn't that great. And if they had a little more polish and a little more communication skills and a little more EQ and some of these other things that we learn in college and in life, maybe they would have been more successful, or maybe they just needed a better idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm. Listen, I went to Silicon Valley. It's the dream machine, right? And I was sucked into it, 30 years ago from Toronto to go to Silicon Valley, and that's how it perpetuates itself, right?
Sure.
There's always, right now it's OpenAI, right? You can, the housing market in San Francisco is off the hook because all this OpenAI liquidity in the summer of last year, it's just that's the exception company.
Sure.
They're giving, millions of dollars liquidity to every employee because they're in the midst of this gold rush and this retention battle for employees. That's the exception.
Sure.
The rule is 12-hour days, 6 days a week in a startup that won't make it.
I mean, another way, just in the education topic, I bet the times that we learned the most was the times that we failed as well.
That's right. For sure.
For instance, both my sons, I've said to them, if you want to go to university, fine. And one is about to make the decision. But you cannot work for anyone longer than 6 to 12 months. You must start your own company. Because I think the process of trying to offer a product or a service, that's the fastest way to learn EQ. That's the fastest way to learn customer service. It's the fastest way of getting the education you should have had that was never given to you. And you can go to university, it will teach you structure and theories and, Maslow hierarchy of needs and all that kind of stuff. But I don't believe that it is as impactful as you trying to go out on your own and trying to build a business. As you know, we've built businesses. We've done good things and things have failed, right? And I learned a heck of a lot more when I failed.
Sounds like you're pretty prescriptive to your kids, though.
Yeah, pretty prescriptive. I
mean,
think
you want them to be entrepreneurs.
The reason why I'm quite strict about it is because I see the value of an employee going down exponentially over the next five years, maybe 8 years maximum. And you go to university, you kind of get your debts, and you go do extra courses, and you go work for a company, and it's getting harder and harder to argue value, right, as an employee, I think. And I think that time that you spend working for somebody else, you can just spend trying to build something for yourself. Even if you fail a couple of times, you blow money here and there. If you keep on trying and you don't give up and you're consistent, you can eventually make it, and it makes up for the whole thing.
Yeah, listen, as a 7-time founder, entrepreneur, I'm finding myself disagreeing with you, but not
just surprising.
But,
so I'm asking
exactly,
I
know, but let me flip it around. Just other side of the coin. I don't disagree. However, here's another perspective. It's not hard, I don't think, to be the top 5% in any organization. I really don't think it's that hard.
True.
If you have that kind of grit and resilience and intelligence and work ethic to start a company, even if it fails, and then do it again, that all those sort of characteristics or skills or abilities are likely going to mean you're going to be top 5% in an organization.
Sure.
Right? A Google,
Agreed.
an Amazon, or whatever, right? An OpenAI. And I would argue there's a pretty good life to be had, both financially and and sort of quality of work and work experience, professional experience to be had if you're in the top 5% of a winning company.
Sure.
And there are going to be a lot of winning companies.
Sure, makes sense.
The next 20 years, as there were the last 20. So you got to get a little bit lucky maybe, or you got to pick well the right companies. But what I also say to young people, and by the way, sure, start a business or start or at least a side hustle, and like go figure that out. What's the AI lemonade stand? Go do it. You're going to learn a lot for sure. But I also say to young people, just commit to be in the top 5%. When you go into that company, just be like one of the better people in that company at any level. You'll progress faster. Your income will start to accelerate. We're going to have companies, right?
Sure.
And we're going to have companies that need management. Companies create a tremendous amount of shareholder value. And the people that steward and manage that shareholder value are really well compensated today in America. Really well compensated. I mean, we have $1 trillion CEO pay packages, at least one, Elon Musk, right? So so that's just another option. Because if you're that good, outside of an organization, you might be that if you can tolerate working for someone.
Sure.
Taking direction, and that's a whole different thing, right? Personality-wise, if you don't have the DNA for it, you don't have the personality DNA for it, then don't do it. Sure. Because you're going to be miserable.
I mean, there was a previous guest that said, Daniel Priestley said, you have to be an apprentice before you can be a leader. So I guess getting that experience is really, really vital as well.
I want to go back to your education sort of comment, though. I think it's really important. One thing I want to highlight. I think for parents of kids right now, you own the responsibility as a parent to how your kids handle AI. We cannot outsource this to the schools. It is chaos in the schools. The schools themselves are underfunded. The teachers are struggling. The administrations are struggling, whether it be middle school, high school, college. Yeah. And so this idea that, that's a school issue, it's not a school issue. This is like drugs. This is like alcohol. This is like all other behavior, social media. If you outsource the management of these risks, I think you're being naive and irresponsible as a parent.
Fully agree.
So I I really want parents to take the ownership of sitting down with their kids and talking about how we're going to use AI. We know there's moments where you're going to cut corners and just get the output from AI and hit send or submit and be done with the paper. We know that.
Sure.
but let's not make that the exclusive use of the AI, and let's talk about and coach and sit with your kids and show the other ways you can use AI that can be a little more productive, and places where you can actually learn faster.
Sure.
With the AI. Anyway, I just don't want parents to outsource that to school, because the schools are struggling.
That's a really important point. I'm glad you added this. And I guess the other thing people need to understand as well is, it's in your hands, right? It's like anything else, which is a good opportunity. You can throw it away, or you can make the most of it. So that's the education and advice to parents thing settled. So that's good. So if you're great, go into a great company if you can, and start a side hustle if you can, and then later on you'll figure out what to do. And if you're not that great, maybe it's this come and go, right? I do think careers, we're going to work for so long. What I tell my kids is, like, don't think about this as one career. Sure.
And don't think about yourself as an entrepreneur or corporate guy or gal, right? Think about yourself as, and we've been talking about this for probably at least a decade now, right? We're going to have sort of multiple careers inside of a 50-year work span, but most of us are going to work for 50 years.
Yeah.
Maybe longer. At least. Most of us will need to. If we get lucky and get a financial win, whether it's an entrepreneur or as a working as an employee for a big company, maybe not. Maybe we won't need to work that long, and we can sort of peace out earlier. But for a lot of people, I think we need to be realistic here, and the work life looks like it's 50+ years. Well, so I think about it as like 10-year spurts. Go work for someone for 5 or 10 years, then go do your own company for maybe 5 or 10 years, sell it, then maybe go work for someone else for a while, right? Take a breather. I didn't do that. I mean, I'm offering this, I guess, advice from the perspective of.
You wish you had done that?
I wish I had. Being a 7-time founder, entrepreneur is tough on everybody.
Sure.
And it's just a series of startups. And it's just startups are take a lot out of you and take a lot out of your family if you're really committed. These weren't side hustles, right? These were all in with our own money and investor money. And I took that really seriously, meaning getting a return for investors, because I took their capital. And the current company I'm running, there's a lot of money in the company from a lot of investors, and I feel my responsibility is to return that capital with a return. And so, it's usually a struggle.
It's not a life for everybody, for sure.
Not a life for everybody. So, when I look back at my career in Silicon Valley, I could have used maybe a couple of moments where I went and worked for someone else for a few years, or maybe went to try to be a VC for a few years, right? I mean, those guys work like 10 to 4, maybe 10 to 3, right? Monday to Thursday. Yeah. So, that wouldn't have been bad for a few years,
So you mentioned that we might need to work for 50 years plus, and I think this segues nicely into something that's going to make your blood boil. So let's go. So if Elon's correct with his predictions, then in 10 years' time, we'll have robots doing our jobs and we won't need to work anymore. So let's go back to your comment initially. What's happening with X? Why are you against them? Doing better in AI? Investments coming in from other companies into X. What's going on there? Why do you feel so strongly about this?
Well, first of all, that the whole Elon, robots will be doing all this work in 10 years. It's nonsense.
Sure.
It's fundraising. So again, we just need to really take all that stuff with a grain of salt and realize that what he's doing is distracting all of us as a way to raise money. And having said that, Amazon will deploy. I don't know the numbers, but it's millions of robots. They already have, right?
Sure.
And will deploy many, many more and drive incredible efficiencies in their organization and their business. So absolutely, this is coming. I'm not sure it's coming to, do our dishes or necessarily take our job directly. Maybe. As it relates to XAI specifically, Grok, I think it's an unsafe AI. It's unsafe for women and children, and it might be unsafe for all of us, in part because they don't really have a safety team there. I think every AI company needs to be serious about safety, needs to be testing their models privately, right, in-house before they're released to the public, as companies like Anthropic do, and OpenAI and Google. These are, this is why we want I think we want both mature tech companies to win in AI, Google, for example, and we want independent AI companies, Anthropic and OpenAI, to also win. Because the independence will drive the pace, I think, of innovation and sort of the products and features that we all want. Because they're new companies, they need to drive growth, and they need to appeal to the user. Right? They don't have business models to protect. In fact, they're disruptors when it comes to business models. So I want those companies to succeed. All the OpenAI haters out there that want OpenAI to fail, I don't get it. I think it's dumb, right? Because then we're going to get just even less AI from less companies. We'll just have an oligopoly, almost monopoly, right? Yeah. So I want the independent companies to succeed. I also want the mature incumbents to succeed, at least some of them, and I consider Google, Microsoft, and Amazon would be my short list, because I think that they at least have functioning boards, and are in general trying to manage themselves responsibly. Visiting Trump and handing him gold statues and awards and plaques. So these guys aren't perfect, but at least they have some governance inside those companies that I think means they'll take AI seriously when it comes to safety and the impact of AI on humanity.
Sure.
I think Elon has no concerns about our well-being. In fact, he thinks humanity's greatest weakness is empathy. So I don't want a guy who thinks empathy is our greatest weakness running an AI company and building a model without a safety team and without a regard to sexual harassment or deep fakes or revenge porn and all the stuff that goes on inside of X and Grok.
What do you think actually happened between Elon and Sam? What do you think the whole saga was about?
Yeah, I think Sam has proven consistently, really, over now close to a decade with OpenAI, that he has a hard time playing nice with other brilliant people. If you had to pick an Achilles heel for Sam Altman, you might say it's his ability to retain the best and the brightest. And there's now I think a pretty good track record there that we can look at and say and it probably started way back when, right? I think Sam Altman's a brilliant guy that believes he will define the future of OpenAI, and if you're not in line with that, you don't stay at OpenAI. What I don't know. I haven't read the books.
Sure. It's
been well reported and a lot written about it. And I don't know too much about it. That's my sense. And if you look at what's happened since, right? I'd say that's OpenAI's Achilles heel. I invested in OpenAI in that last round in the summer, that $300 billion valuation round. So I put our family's money into that round because I'm a huge believer in OpenAI, both the product. I've been really impressed with how Sam Altman has navigated all the challenges and risks.
Sure.
For a guy who's 38 years old and never run a large company before, I think he's done a pretty good job of navigating all kinds of crazy issues and challenges that most CEOs have never faced before.
Especially at the intensity that it's happening at as well.
The pace, exactly, intensity. I'm hoping it's going to work out. I like my money. I'd like my money back, but we'll see.
I mean, two things on OpenAI, which I think are important. People want to know more about. That whole board situation where they've tried to fire Sam Altman and he came back a couple of days afterwards. What do you think that was as well? I mean, is their board well set up now? Because board and governance are really important, right? You want to, like you mentioned, we want to be relying on companies that have structure, that have governance, and they're doing things properly. Do you think it's okay?
Yeah, listen, I think that original saga and a lot of other saga that was sort of that probably a 2-year period of turmoil with that sort of dramatic boardroom coup was really all about we were a nonprofit and a bunch of researchers doing a science experiment. And then it became we can be the most valuable and influential company in the history of capitalism. OpenAI has that potential. Yeah. And it became clear to everybody 3-ish years ago that was actually an option. And I think, and Sam Altman decided that's the option I want. I don't want to be known as the guy that invented AI. I want to be known as the guy that runs the most influential and profitable, powerful company in the world. Because my sense is, if there is one winner, one or two winners, these will be the most powerful companies that capitalism ever created. I think a lot of dysfunction, drama, and angst and politics and just have kind of flowed from that, right? Trying to get to a for-profit structure. Mm-hmm. So to answer your second question, I don't know too much about the board. It seems like,
better set up now. I think.
Yeah, better set up. They look like experienced, competent people. I don't know exactly the governance structure, frankly, and I don't think they have a two-class share structure. Like Meta doesn't. Meta's board is a joke because Zuckerberg really has all the votes, right?
Sure.
So why there's been no oversight. That's why any CEO that spent $50 billion on the metaverse, in exchange for nothing, whatever, $100 million in revenue, it would have been fired, obviously, right? Sure. Any functioning board would have said, you took $50 billion of cash out of the shareholder kind of, a kitty, but basically that could have been a stock dividend.
Sure.
Instead, it was, Zuck's 10-year delusion called the metaverse. So that's not a board, right? That's just a fake board. So we'll see what AI could end up being the same, and if it is, it should cost these CEOs their jobs. If AI is a bust in 3 to 5 years, every one of these CEOs should be fired, because they're the ones that committed, each of them, around 25 to 50 billion. If you look at each of these companies, if not more, OpenAI is a lot more. But if you think about Microsoft and Amazon and Google and others, they're pouring a lot of money that they won't be able to get back. Right, into AI, and that's money they could have used, obviously, to do something else with, either start, build other products or do shareholder dividends. So we'll see.
Let's talk about the other two 400-pound gorillas in the room, which we haven't spoken too much about. So obviously Google, and they kind of came to the market recently with Nano Banana, Gemini 3,
right.
And they're absolutely killing it. Right, everyone's talking about Google now. OpenAI has kind of died down a little bit.
Yep.
We're going to talk about China as well in a second,
because
I think that's really, really important. Because you mentioned that OpenAI is setting the pace, but I think China is also kind of pushing. It's kind of like that dark horse in the background that's, if we slip up, they're going to take over, right? Which one do you want to cover first?
Well, let's talk. Let's talk about this past year. It was a tough year for OpenAI. So I think that they are the bellwether company in the category, in my opinion, the independent company in the category, and they had a rough year. For sure, in terms of their product releases, did not meet expectations. They looked very incremental in terms of what they were, and not at a high pace, really. I think what we now know is we are in a very competitive market, and there seems to be less differentiation and proprietary sort of capabilities inside these models. They seem to converge quite quickly. The way they're currently architected and trained, they seem to converge quite quickly into, hey, they're all close in capability. And that's a problem for everybody. And that's a problem certainly for OpenAI and Anthropic, because they have less capital, they have less distribution. And really what they had as an advantage is gone. They had what every startup has as an advantage. They had the ability to tolerate risk and move fast. That's the only thing startups have.
Sure.
When you really when you boil it down, right? Startups are willing to take more risks than incumbents, and they can just go fast because they don't have layers of management to make decisions. And OpenAI and Anthropic took advantage of that for 5, 6, 7 years and really forced Google's hand. Now you're seeing what happens when an incumbent gets their shit together and takes the team plus the capital plus the scale, plus the built-in distribution, and get serious. And I think basically Google was waiting to get to a point where they knew they had no choice. Why disrupt yourself?
Sure.
And they really had to have conviction that OpenAI was actually going to disrupt them. And likely that was showing up in search result volume. Like if you're at Google, you're sitting there, you're looking at all the numbers, right? Yeah, you can hear anecdotally people, love ChatGPT, what you're really looking at are page views or clicks or ad revenue, and it's clear what was happening. Power users were shifting search volume to chat, to AI.
Sure.
So they've moved, and it's impressive. And I think I think it's easy for us to imagine them number one in a year, Google.
Yeah.
If the product's at parity and they've got the built-in distribution and they let it rip, they don't hold themselves back as an incumbent. They really realize they're in a dogfight with an OpenAI. The numbers are, it sounds like they're about half a billion users. Gemini's, or Google's talking about sort of half. You can't tell what that number really is, right? Is it sort of people summarizing emails using the Gemini plugin, or is it really someone sort of chatting with Gemini like we think? ChatGPT numbers feel like they're 800, 900 million, maybe a billion soon. So that's how you get to 2 billion total users, I think, in the world for AI, between OpenAI, Google, and then everybody else. Feels like to me we're sitting around 2 billion. Yeah, I think a year from now we could be saying Google's number one in terms of volume of active users. And then they're going to have a tough decision, right? What's the business model?
Yeah.
But yeah, and then of course China.
Let's unpack Google for a second, because there's a lot there.
All right. Yeah, there is.
I mean, I'm in a bit of a difficult place because I have partnerships with both of them. So I've got to, but I will still be honest about it. When OpenAI, really raced ahead, I was always just thinking, well, it's impossible for Google not to catch up. They have all of the data that they need. They have all of the cloud computing. They have TPUs. They have everything. They have the people. They have hundreds of billions in cash just sitting doing nothing. Which is a whole tax conversation we can get into some other time. Why isn't Google catching up? I was very frustrated by this. And I can see now, what's going on. I can see how it's working. I can see how the dots are being joined. But the fundamental problem is it's very different to build a standalone AI capability versus trying to embed an AI capability in an existing product. And we've seen that over and over again with Microsoft releasing something, trying to embed something into something else, and it never quite reaches its full potential.
Right.
So do you believe the Achilles heel for Google is the fact that they actually are an existing business already, and they're trying to embed AI into what they're doing, and that's going to be how OpenAI actually takes over eventually?
Yeah, I mean, that's been the story of the last 5 years, right? That is the incumbent's dilemma. That's the classic incumbent's dilemma, that they want to leverage the advantages they have without disrupting themselves. And I think your observation is exactly right, that what that usually means is some compromises to the product or the capabilities of the product, right? Because it's got to be fit in to something, either a business model or a sort of a user paradigm, right? A workflow, right? But that's the value of the distribution. Can I fit it into that distribution when you're in my Google Drive or obviously all the Google workspace? Can I fit it in without sort of losing some of the capabilities? And I think that's really got to do with Google can. They have to decide that they want to take that risk.
Yeah, and we've all seen Google fail in other ventures, right? When Google tried to have self-driving cars, that was a total bust. They've tried many things that didn't quite work out.
Waymo, what do you mean self-driving car? Yeah. Waymo's not a bust.
Well, not exactly number one either, right? And it took a long time to get there, a lot of capital, way more than what Tesla's doing. In terms of the success.
Let's get to that. Let's get to that later. Yeah. I mean, my three favorite products last year, I guess, were
Waymo?
ChatGPT, Waymo, and a Bell. And I want to tell you about the Bell later.
Okay, we'll leave that to the end. But Waymo's quite popular in San Francisco, right?
Waymo's amazing.
It's everywhere in San Francisco.
Yeah, it's everywhere in San Francisco. I haven't seen the latest numbers. They are absolutely eating share from, obviously, Uber and Lyft.
Yep.
For kids and women, it's an incredible product. It's the safest way to ride as a rider, as a passenger.
Yeah.
By the way, as a pedestrian and as a cyclist,
is better as well
in a city. It is dramatically better. There is no comparison. There's no debate. The data is very clear. It is safer on the road with Waymos than human drivers.
That counts for a lot. That's important.
Counts for a lot. If I'm a pedestrian or on a bike or a motorbike, I want Waymos all around me. I don't want humans. Waymos don't get distracted by text messages.
True.
So, but listen, Waymo's a lot like, frankly, OpenAI. I think tons of capital. You're right. 10 years, a giant science experiment.
Yeah.
Will this even work? And then, even if it works, will we get regulatory approval?
Yeah, it's tough as well.
It's tough to let it rip. So, but they have, and it's an incredible product.
Mm-hmm.
I want Waymo everywhere. I can't wait for they're getting approval for San Francisco Airport.
Great.
They're going to need airport approval to really compete, I think, in cities,
Yep,
right?
yep.
That's where 40% of the volume
Yep.
for Uber is taking people to the airport. So we need Waymo to SFO. We need Waymo on highways.
Sure.
Obviously, things like that. So early days, I'm a fan, and I think it's going to be good for all of us, autonomous driving.
By the way, are you aware that Google actually came through the breakthrough in transformers and vectorization before OpenAI did?
Oh yeah,
right?
no,
Okay.
I get it.
And
yeah,
they
yeah.
sat on it.
No. This
okay.
this is the classic.
Yeah.
Again, the classic incumbent's dilemma.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. They essentially invented this category, right, of generative AI, of LLMs, but they had too good a thing going.
Yeah.
You know, they had search.
And as soon as they discovered it, a bunch of people ended up leaving.
Yeah.
So Mustafa Suleiman, they used to be in Google DeepMind,
Right.
left to set up Pi
Mm-hmm.
with a bunch of other people as well.
The guy who did Cohere in Toronto, he was the youngest member. I think there were 7 or 9 of them. I think 8 or 9. 8 of the 9 left, or 6 of the 7 left.
Yeah.
You're right. And it all started AI companies.
Yes. Reid Hoffman joined
Yep.
Pi later on as well. So let's go to China now.
Yeah.
Because I speak in China, I speak all over Asia, and I get the sense that, things are moving tremendously fast there. If you go to Shanghai, I mean, it's just, wow. It's breathtaking how many skyscrapers there are, how much technology there is everywhere. Drone deliveries happening frequently, self-driving cars everywhere. It's pretty interesting what's going on. What do you think about the whole, competition between U.S. and China? Is China actually going to set the pace? Do you believe China's ahead in some ways, shape, or form?
Well, I think that's 2 ways to think about this. First of all, is this an arms race?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah,
in a nice way.
This is how it's been set up, right? This is how we've set it up in the U.S. This is how the tech industry, this is how Silicon Valley has described this to the Trump administration, which is this is an arms race, and this is basically a fight for our existential survival.
Sure.
That if we don't win with AI, then we lose, and we lose to China, and therefore don't regulate us, don't have any oversight. Smart play on the part of Silicon Valley,
Sure.
right?
Tech bros,
great,
getting what they need.
Yeah, good narrative, right? That and a few $100 million of campaign donations, that worked out really well. Good ROI on that investment for big tech for sure. Zero oversight, no real concern for humanity in the deployment of AI currently. Just let it rip.
Sure.
Because we think that it's a race with China. Maybe. I mean, does anyone know? No, I mean, imagine 10 years ago what predictions we would have made that would have come true, and things that we hadn't thought about have come. Would anybody have thought we would have snatched the president of Venezuela?
That was incredible.
I just think we're in the.
Yeah.
So I don't like to. I think it's tough to be in the prediction business.
Sure.
These days, more than ever. Maybe we're in a race with China, because the owners of the AIs are the ones that kind of rule. Having said that, we just finished talking about how all these AIs are kind of the same, and they're hard to differentiate, and a lot of them are open sourced.
Yep.
So, is it really a race between 2 proprietary AIs owned by 2 different nations, or is it really like everybody's building this like crazy, and we're going to have access to AI from all kinds of different sources? And so why do we think this is a race to the death with China? I don't know. I'm not sure I get it. What I do get is that if you need good enough quality inference, if you're building AI applications, as you do, and you need good enough quality inference, and you don't care where it comes from, if you're just like, hey, I just it's like water, it's like electricity, it's just inference, then cost is what will likely drive your decision. Who's got the cheapest inference?
Yeah.
Of good enough quality that I need for whatever application that you're building.
Yeah. Good point.
And I think China delivered a huge wake up, specifically DeepSeek, but not just them. Now there's others, but I think we got the big wake up call, a year and a half ago now that they can build pretty good AI and deliver that inference at a fraction of the cost per token than what OpenAI was doing. So yeah, I think that that's the question for me really is tokens, AI, inference, needs to have gross margin.
Yeah.
Like if the whole industry is based on manufacturing tokens, these huge data centers, and then selling them, and there needs to be some gross margin in there. And I think that's the question we don't have the answer for yet, whether it be China's inference or ours or anyone's. Can we produce this inference at a cost where we can sell it and make a little bit of money? If we can't,
I mean, you're getting to investor speak, so we have to kind of dive into that a little bit more. I mean, if you're a astute investor and you see that there's this crazy valuation for OpenAI and Claude and everybody else, and you've got these open source models which are free. Sure, you need to pay for compute, tokens, etc. Does it make a lot of sense to be investing so many billions into a company like OpenAI and Claude, etc.? Then you've got China coming up with really cheap models. Does that diminish the argument for investing in a company like OpenAI and Claude? Does that make any sense? Or is it about something bigger? Is it about the race to AGI? In the promise of that, which, it's a loose definition as well.
Sure.
I just to go into that very quickly.
Yep.
In June, I was with Jensen Huang for a couple of days, for 2 days. And we were together.
That's a good name drop, by the way.
40 other people.
All right. That's it.
And one topic that came up was, everyone's getting very irritated by the topic of AGI, ASI. And what the hell do these things mean? Can we put a phrase around these so that we can give to the World Economic Forum and everybody bloody discusses it in Davos in a couple of days, and we kind of settle that. And we know that ASI will probably come in a couple of decades, if ever. But AGI, from the definition, will be reached in a couple of years, and it's super clear for everybody. Do you believe that the investors are actually just really investing into the potential of AGI? It's not really about, OpenAI 5.5.
Right.
It's not really about, Gemini 4.0. It's about whoever gets to AGI first will be the ultimate winner. And do you believe that's even true? Or is that just something that's been implanted to make us believe and then chase the money? I mean, let's break that down a little bit as an investor.
I get it.
Right?
No, I think that's the right question. So first of all, I don't know what AGI is either, and I think it's like Elon's robot dream, right? AGI is a fundraising narrative.
Sure. There was a definition out of it, I can tell you.
No, sure. So okay, there's a definition, and it would seem to me that if there is a definition that makes sense, it would be insanely valuable. Yeah. AGI. And then those who got there first, assuming others could not get there.
Sure.
That's not been the case with LLMs, right? OpenAI got there first, and everybody else seems to have caught up. And the only problem has really been solving for money. And if you had enough money, you could get. Yeah. And then the DeepSeek came along and said, we don't even need the money. We can do this at a fraction of the price. So, if AGI is that hard and that special, it would seem like getting there first would be valuable. But that wasn't the case with LLMs, because getting there first didn't seem to create any sustainable economic advantage.
And just quickly on this topic, because I think it's very important people understand this, and especially investors. A lot of times when a new model comes out, the thing that everybody's touting around is, look, my model's number one in the tables. And the thing that's been annoying me for quite a long time is a lot of the engineers are building the models to be at the top of the tables, not to necessarily be more useful for humanity, for companies, for people. It's to win that table ranking, right? That's to say I'm number one for 3 months. And that's really annoying me, because AI is supposed to be this magical thing that we use to make companies better, to make things better around us, communities, people, everything. But if we're constantly chasing a league table, which actually means not very much to many people, but it's the benchmark we're using for seeing who's the best, it's just complete nonsense to me.
It is nonsense. And in fact, I think what's going on is something else as well, which is, in fact, I think in the heart of these companies, like in the lab, the biggest brains inside of these companies, the PhD AI researchers, the ones that are being paid $100 million a year or they're being poached, like those people. I don't think they actually care about those tables either. I think they're trying to build AGI or ASI. I think the core of these companies are in fact still science experiments. These are sort of techno-optimists, I think that the world would be a better place if decisions were made by the AGI. And I think they think about it as, can we build a coding agent and a reasoning agent get them married,
Mhm.
and the baby's going to be AGI. That's what's happening, I think, inside these labs. That's why we have good coding agents. And that's why we have good reasoning agents. They're building those, I think. Again, right in the core of these labs, they're building those so they have a shot at AGI. What's happened is, oh shit, now we need money. Now we need revenue.
Yeah.
Right? So the productization is part of that. Be high in the rankings. Like, who names? I mean, only Silicon Valley would come up with a benchmark name called humanity's last exam. Like, it's kind of a sick joke, right? Like, no, like why? But it just kind of shows their mindset, which is, we're all smarter than you, and we're going to build this AI that's smarter than everybody. Anyway, whatever. So listen, I think that back to your original question.
Yeah. Essentially, is AI a bubble? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, well,
how do you look at it as an investor?
We'll get to that. As an investor, I think there's a couple ways to think about it. I think some investors, you're right, are saying I'm investing in OpenAI or Anthropic, whoever it is, because I think they have a shot at getting to the AGI first, or the first or second, right? Whatever. They'll be in the top three, and an untold reward will come for that company and therefore its investors. I think others are investing. I invested in OpenAI, believing that they will build applications on top of the inference that we will depend on, to your point, that we will work and live with, that will be insanely valuable to us, that either consumers or companies will pay for. Like, I do think that application layer is still to be built out. ChatGPT is really just a pretty basic application on top of the AI, right? And we, most of us kind of like it.
Yeah.
Some of us love it. Some of us are getting addicted to it, right? Yeah. But I think that if you think about a 10-year time horizon, I think about it as, can OpenAI build 5 applications in 10 years that are indispensable to humanity?
Sure.
If they can, they'll be one of the most valuable companies ever created. Sure. I mean, Google built one.
Yeah.
Search.
Yeah.
One. That's it, one application. Oh, big, profitable. Insanely profitable. Can OpenAI? My bet when I invested in OpenAI was, can they build several incredible applications that hundreds of millions or billions of people rely on every day? I think they can.
Yeah,
we'll see. So that's sort of that application layer, I think, is where the action is for the next decade. Maybe the decade after is this promise or this quest for AGI. So are we in a bubble? Listen, we're in 3 bubbles, I think, at least 3.
Break it down.
Yeah. Here. The first, I think, is an investor bubble, meaning 10,800 AI startups were funded in the last 2 years. Wow. We did the math. 10,800. So, and about half of all the capital went into the big independent AI companies, and then the rest of that capital went into 10,800 startups. So, of course, that's going to be a wipeout. Way too many companies were funded way too quickly. There was no due diligence. It has been a gold rush. A bunch of entrepreneurs are going to waste 2, 3, 4, 5 years of their life. That sucks. I know what that feels like. Yeah. It hurts.
Same. Yeah.
Right? And a bunch of investors will lose a bunch of money, and I don't really care about them. That's why it's called risk capital.
Sure.
That's their, I think they probably will regret a lot of those investments because they got kind of sucked into the moment, into the gold rush, and went too fast. Sure. So that's a bubble. It will burst. It'll burst fast if OpenAI, as I said earlier, can't raise that capital because they're the bellwether company. But it'll start to burst all over the place, meaning hundreds and thousands of AI startups will just go out of business because they have, they have insignificant ideas or they have applications that just will not get product market fit.
Sure.
Everybody forgets product market fit's the hardest thing for a startup to get.
Yeah.
Building products is easy.
Yeah.
Product market fit, it's hard. That's one bubble. Second bubble is a data center bubble. Are we overbuilding data centers and using a combination of equity and debt to fund them? And my sense is, of course, we're going to get this wrong. How could we possibly expect, especially the independent AI companies who don't really know what they're doing, right? They're new to this game of building data centers. Google, I think, kind of knows what they're doing. They know how to build data centers, right?
Sure.
So, but will OpenAI and Anthropic and others accurately predict today their data center demands in 2 or 3 years? And get it right in every market. Yeah. I mean, I don't see how we could expect them to. So it feels like to me we're going to have data centers that we don't need in certain markets, and and we won't have enough supply in other markets. Like, they won't get that right.
Yeah.
Not 100%, right? So that tells me on the data center side, yeah, we're going to be reading stories about data centers, companies going bankrupt, or the debt holders wanting, foreclosing on a data center. I think we're going to see lots of those stories, just because I don't think we can expect these companies to really be able to predict today and build accurately in all their markets. The data centers. The third bubble is the capability.
One second.
Okay.
Data centers. So there's some meddling going on with the finances for
sure.
data centers, right?
Yeah.
Like, the useful value lifespan of a GPU changing from 2 years to 3, 4, 5 years sometimes. Bit of Enron-ish going on there.
Magic accounting.
Yeah. And I mean, one thing I always see with the GTC conferences from NVIDIA is, Jensen under immense pressure every single time to announce a new GPU.
Mm-hmm.
And they have these now kind of every couple of months. It used to be once a year. It's happening a lot in different countries now. And the last update he gave now at CES conference in Vegas was nothing truly amazing, and I'm starting to see a bit of a Also, he doesn't need to invent things every quarter, right? A new GPU every quarter, because it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
The orders are already stacked for years coming.
Right. Yeah.
So I fully agree with you. I think the data center side is not just are we going to get the amount of compute right at the right time, but also the cost, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's about $1 billion per gigawatt to build a data center. And we're needing 5, 10 gigawatt data centers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just not making a lot of sense. So we'll see. And then when Google is kind of winning the race by building their TPUs, far cheaper, more efficient, completely built by them, we can see why NVIDIA share price is kind of yo-yoing a little bit. Mm-hmm. So data centers. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, you're right.
Third one.
Third one is what I call the capabilities bubble. I think the meme last year was LLMs are maxing out, right? The sort of the era of huge amount of training, more data, more training, more compute drives the capabilities higher. It felt like for most of last year that wasn't working as well, right? That we were sort of plateauing in terms of the capabilities of these models. And I think that's mostly because OpenAI, had a tougher year. But I think by the end of the year, we got the answer. Mm-hmm. Scaling is still working.
Yeah.
Gemini 3.0 was a significant improvement, and they said that they achieved that through scaling. Now, they had incentive to say that because they're spending a lot of money, building a lot of data centers, right? And then I think also, Claude Code, Anthropic's model also showed that they made significant advances in their capabilities. So it feels like to me that bubble's not bursting. So my advice has been to leaders, if you think this bubble's bursting in terms of these AI capabilities, and so you can kind of avoid this for a while, I think that's a mistake. Don't be distracted. These other two bubbles might burst. You might get some investor kind of deflation, right? Sure. You might get some sort of data center bust. But as long as we're seeing this rate of advancement in the capabilities, and I think we saw in the fourth quarter a pretty significant improvement in some of the models, then I think that's going to continue. They may not get us to AGI. I mean, I think Ilya Sutskever is being the most sort of pragmatic and sane about this. It's we'll need one or two more breakthroughs, right? Technological breakthroughs that are not obvious yet, perhaps, or maybe they are inside the labs and we don't know about them yet. Yeah. But we're going to need some additional technological breakthroughs, like the transformer model was as the initial breakthrough. So we'll need more of that. But these things still seem to be improving. I think one of the things that frustrates me. You talked about your frustrations. One of mine is hallucinations. You would have thought, if you'd asked me 3 years ago, I would have said, without a doubt, that problem will be solved by now. That there's no way that it may not be zero, but I would have thought by now that kind of problem would be close to zero, because I thought the incentive for the AI companies to solve that was so high, for the enterprise in particular, that enterprises won't deploy AI and pay for AI at the rates that these companies need because they consider it unreliable. And I think hallucinations essentially is the core of the unreliability, right? So I don't know what you think about it. And are you surprised by the sort of persistence of hallucinations at this point?
So this is the thing. There's so much to unpack. It's great having you here, honestly. We're totally geeking out on AI here. Actually, there's a misconception on hallucinations.
Okay.
one of the greatest forms of intelligence is imagination, right? A person be able to completely paint a picture that doesn't exist, that came completely from their mind, to design a product in a way that's never been designed before, right?
Yep.
Imagination, I think, is one of the things that makes us special as humans. If we limited AI models, and this is coming from direct, conversations with guys from Stanford, MIT, the guys inside of OpenAI, etc. If we limit the amount of hallucinations that we allow LLMs to take, what we're going to get in return is just something that regurgitates what already exists. And the parameters have been played with. They used to be 8%, it went down to 3%, now it's kind of 1.5%, and the parameters are getting better. Hallucinations are getting better.
They are, right? Okay. So I'm not caught up on the latest data. So your sense is the data is showing that
huge improvements.
The problem's been mitigated the last year.
But here's the problem:
Yeah.
the lower the hallucination score, the longer it takes to get to true intelligence. Because if you don't allow the LLM models to make up scenarios, to imagine things that don't exist, it's just going to become a regurgitation machine. It's not going to be able to think outside the box from things that we have already invented on Earth by humans. And it's a horrible paradox, because you have to allow the LLM to play, to experiment, to try new things, to imagine things, because that's how we get breakthroughs and out-of-the-box moments. But you can't do it so much that it annoys the users who are wanting to rely on super accurate information. And that's a good segue into actually the AGI piece. So we don't need another transformer breakthrough to get to AGI. It's pretty well known now how to get to AGI. And the path to AGI is actually allowing LLM models to be applied to the real world. So I'll give you an example. I've got a sister, she's a genius, textbook genius. Outside in the world, useless. Yeah. I mean, I say that with loving, with loving words.
Struggles with reality.
Struggles with reality, doing things in the
Paying
normal
the
world.
bills. Yeah, right.
But give her an exam and a book, she'll ace it. She'll get an A star.
Yeah.
And this is the problem with LLMs. We've just allowed it to be on the computer, right? Doing digital things, write this essay, correct this email, or generate this image. But the whole point of NVIDIA's digital twin is to allow this kind of digital world for LLMs to go and experiment inside of. And the whole point of humanoids is to apply AI knowledge into a real world, right? Picking up a real bottle and doing things, etc. If we do that enough, we take the LLMs out of the computer and into the real world enough, that's the path to AGI, because that's true intelligence, but inside the real world, right? The physical form world. And if you start combining that with the digital enough, you get to the point where you do have AGI, which is this thing that can do anything a human can do.
Okay, but I'm gonna play devil's advocate now. I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm taking the side of like this of the CFO.
Go for
so
it.
because if you're pitching me on AI and I'm the CFO, I'm like, I don't really give a shit about your AGI. I care about if there's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% error rate in this inference, and I'm using this inference to build what I would consider mission critical or customer applications.
Financials even.
Financials, like Danilo, I don't, okay, your world models and all that stuff, whatever. And by the way, I'm the one paying the bills.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like enterprises have to pay for AI. So what's your answer? Like
the solution to that is stop using the large LLMs, go to open source, change the parameters to zero hallucination, and you're done.
So you really think it's that easy kind of thing?
I mean,
not that easy, but like that basically pick your AI to dial down the creativity essentially,
Sure.
right? You basically said it's a bug, but no, it's really a feature.
Yeah.
And you're saying you could just remove the bug.
Yeah.
Meaning the hallucination, the unreliability.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why don't because as you were
and a lot of people don't understand this.
Yeah. Well, as you're explaining it though, I was thinking, why doesn't OpenAI do this? Meaning, why don't they have models that they sell to companies? That are basically
distractions,
locked down. Just that's a distraction.
It's distractions. Yeah.
They can't afford the distraction, because it would make sense. Like inside the lab,
Sure.
be creative.
Yeah.
Use the models to hallucinate and be creative and whatever. And then what we sell to J.P. Morgan Chase or whatever has to be
slows down AGI progress. That's it.
Because they think that is the goal.
Yeah. Ultimately.
I know, but okay. So this gets to what you and I were talking about earlier when we started, right? I think then therefore we have a race now. And the race is, what is the rate of AI enterprise adoption and value creation? What's the rate of that when compared to how much capital is in OpenAI and Anthropic's bank account? Meaning, like you've got to, if companies aren't getting enough value from this, then these companies have to keep raising tons of money to fund the gap until either they get to AGI, again, whatever that is, or companies really start to kick in and adopt AI, and deploy it much more aggressively. Because what we're seeing is low rates of adoption, low rates of employee usage, even inside of organizations. I just think that's a real issue right now because, consumers don't pay for it. We know that. Consumers love AI. They don't pay for it. Basically, a few
they try not to.
They try not to. Right, a few are upgrading and paying for the paid plans. I think OpenAI is talking about 40 million. I think paid sort of monthly active users, but it's hundreds of millions that are kind of using it for free, billions maybe. Right, so we need the enterprise to pay the bill, but they're struggling.
There's two problems here, and we should get into the enterprise bit, I think, because I think this is the year of execution. There's been a lot of years of promises by CEOs, what we're going to do with AI, et cetera, and CIOs and CTOs, et cetera. But I think a lot of people are going to get fired this year for not executing. So we need to get into that because I think a lot of people are lost in the execution area, which is why your company exists and my company exists in different ways. I think there's a problem on some of the leaders for the LLM models. They're so obsessed with getting to AGI first, but they're going to get a reality check when the cash starts running dry, and people don't want to give them an extra 100 billion every year or so.
Right.
And they're going to start focusing a lot more on enterprise sales. OpenAI, for instance, has a professional services team. I know them pretty well. I know what they're doing. Yes, it's growing. The adoption is growing on the enterprise side, but it's nowhere near as fast as it should be to pay the bills. And that's the problem. I think maybe you saw this interview that Sam did a few weeks ago at another podcast where someone confronted him saying, "Look, you've got trillions of dollars in spend commitments, but you only make a couple of billion a month. Like, it doesn't add up." And Sam got very annoyed. It's like, "Oh, you can sell your shares. I can go buy your shares. Stop talking about that. And our revenue is way higher than it actually is. But still, trillions to billions. We're talking magnitudes of 1,000, right? It doesn't make any sense." So enterprise. We first talked about enterprise adoption being hurt by people being scared, and companies not rolling it out properly, not explaining things properly. But there's more to it than that, right? There's, being scared, you can incentivize someone by paying them double. That kind of helps with the scaremongering for a little while. But what else is going on? Because I think that's not being talked about enough. People are just expecting AI to happen, and that's it. I've got my own stories, but let's share stories on this.
Yeah. I think you're right. There's a long list of what's going wrong, unfortunately.
What are you seeing?
Yeah, we're seeing the data, the company data is not in a sort of a shape that is good enough to be plugged into the AI. So employees want to use the AI, but it's not useful enough yet because you want to use AI with your data.
Sure.
So that's why personally we get such value from it because we're willing to upload, our medical report or our kids' report card or whatever it is we need to kind of share with the AI. We're willing to do that personally, and we get so much more value out of the AI when it's working with our data.
Sure.
And you come into a company and wait a minute, I'm a marketer, but the data I need that I want to interrogate and work with AI on, the data is not connected to the AI, or it's last year's data, or whatever, right? Or the permissioning is all messed up.
Yeah.
And so I think that whole issue of sort of enterprise data and connecting it to AI is a big issue.
On this topic, believe it or not, I come across hundreds of clients a year who are still using OpenAI from the website. They haven't even installed it inside their own firewalls.
Right. Yeah.
And then they're kind of going, well, it doesn't work.
Right.
It's not useful.
Right.
Of course, because you haven't connected to your data.
Right.
So, are you seeing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And one of the things we do with new clients is we do a diagnostic, and it's basically an anonymous survey. It's pretty basic. So when a new client comes on, we say, listen, let's survey the workforce, and we'll assess their proficiency. So we actually ask them to prompt and sort of work with AI, and we give them a score of that proficiency. We ask them a bunch of questions about their attitudes and behavior. So what is so revealing about that, because it's anonymous, is you learn things like the unsanctioned use of GPT
Sure.
is higher
Yeah.
than the sanctioned use of
Yeah.
whatever other LLM. It's
Yeah.
typically Microsoft Copilot in large organizations, right?
Greg, there are still listed companies that haven't blocked the OpenAI domain.
Right.
Like employees are putting in sensitive information from their clients,
Right.
healthcare information into OpenAI's website. It doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense. So we have you know the list. We have a data problem. We have a governance problem. We have
Why is governance different? Go into that a little bit. Why is it different for AI? Why isn't it just like any other, ERM, CRM system? Why isn't it like just rolling out SAP? What's the
I
difference?
actually think it is. I think that though the independent AI companies were slow to convince enterprise that their models were safe. When you did do the enterprise version or the enterprise instance, you are safe.
Sure.
But there was just this constant drumbeat of sort of fear mongering around if your data is going to go into the model you're training there, there's going to be leakage into the broader model, whatever. I think it was a lot of misinformation, quite frankly,
a lot.
and that CTOs and CEOs, a lot of people sort of just are not well informed about this.
Still,
and there's a lot of consultants who are perpetrating the misinformation because they're selling the solution.
Sure. Until today, I get CISOs coming to me kind of, we haven't quite set it up yet because, we don't know if the data is going to leave. But come on, Mr. CISO.
Right.
It's the same as your emails, as your Teams messages.
Absolutely.
You install it inside your firewall and it stays that way.
Right.
That's it. It's not magic.
Yeah, I often think it's an excuse, quite frankly, from that executive team who don't want to really wrap their head around AI. I think I think most of my friends are, and I notice this with like 55 plus. 55 plus, the attitude I typically get is, I'm going to retire soon.
Yes, I see that a lot. Yeah.
This is going to be someone else's problem. If I can just kind of ride this out for a couple more years, and work on my golf game, I'm good. Right?
Yeah.
I heard that from my doctor last year. Literally, my orthopedic surgeon's like, I'm not convinced. I've heard it from legal firm partners. Yeah, I'm the partner, of course, right? Like, I'm just gonna, I'll pick up my partner check for 2 more years.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
So I just think that a lot of leadership is in that age range and older.
Sure.
And they're like, I don't want to deal with this.
Sure.
It's not an existential risk today to my income. I think a lot of leaders are like, where'd the income come from? And is there risk to that? Like, is there a risk to my pocketbook?
Sure.
And if there isn't, I'll just kind of like,
Agreed. So
I'll play along.
Data governance, leadership, age, style.
A little bit style. I think that there is a use case problem, meaning, as we talked about earlier, this is so capable, this technology. We're used to rolling out software and doing transformations typically around a single use case. Not always, but most typically, right? We're going to deploy a new CRM. It's going to be a huge effort. Sure. It's going to take 2 years. Thousands of people will have to be trained and all that stuff. But it's a CRM,
and it doesn't work very well at the end.
Yeah, that doesn't. No, right.
SAP, for instance.
But we all know what it is. Right? We all know what it is, though, right? And it does one thing.
Yeah.
And this is this weird technology, and we give it to people and say it can do.
Lack of imagination?
Yeah, or no, almost too much.
Too much, okay.
Right? Like, give me 5 use cases.
Okay.
Tell me as a marketer the 5 things that I should be using AI for at work. Like at home, we know what those are, right? That's why everybody's got their top 10 favorite personal use cases. We don't have them for work. We really struggle with that. And when we're trained on how to prompt.
Yeah.
That's dumb.
Yeah.
I mean, you need to know how to prompt. In a couple of years, everyone's going to know how to prompt, right?
Yeah.
What we need to be coaching people on are the use cases.
Sure.
And the workflows that they should switch to be AI enabled.
So for me, there's 2 things that I come across daily, and it's 2 things. One is the company's so scared of AI being set up the wrong way and someone getting access to other people's information, which is just dumb because you just set up on the person's graph on Microsoft and that's it. That they limit it so much that it doesn't matter how much the person comes up with good use cases, they're limited by the way it's been set up.
100%.
Which just drives me insane because it's just incompetent IT teams and CISOs. Then the second one that I'm seeing is I'm seeing a lot of companies come to market with out-of-the-box personas and solutions. And that's great because then you don't have to have such a great imagination. You can just kind of install it. And this is a HR bot, and this is a compliance bot, and this is a coding bot. But the problem with that is, anything out of the box, it has its limitations. And the wonderful thing about AI is this infinite possibilities, conundrum. But then when you box it in, it doesn't do justice to the technology. I'm seeing two things there on the adoption side, which is really, really hurting.
Yep. But let's go back to your HR bot example, because I do think every company should deploy an Ask HR bot. Sure. It seems like a no-brainer to me.
Sure.
Right? So what you're saying is, though, they should basically customize, tune it better for their company versus out of the box?
I think so. Yeah. Because you went back, going back to the data, your first point. So there's a company that we are doing things for, and they said, let's build a HR bot. And we said, great. What's it going to be trained on? And let's look at your HR policies. And 300 plus policies, a complete mess, no control over the policy documents themselves,
right.
Completely different formats. It's just a complete jungle. We got around that eventually. But then, am I going to be able to talk about how to get a better salary with this bot? Does it need to have certain parameters or things it cannot talk about?
Right.
Because a really clever bot would say, well, I've got access to everybody's payroll information.
Right.
There's a guy in your team earning 30% more, so just tell your boss that and you get a pay rise. So there's certain parameters you have to put into enterprise solutions. And I think the fear of not getting that right, and especially in some countries, lawsuits coming up because of that.
For sure.
That can be a real problem. But yeah, I get frustrated with this lack. I think you think it's too much imagination. I think it's lack.
Well, maybe not too much imagination. It's so capable in terms of what it can do, and I think it's just easier. Change management and organizational sort of movement is easier when you can say to people,
sure.
The from to. We're here and we're going to go here.
Yeah.
And the more that's defined and narrowly defined and explainable, it's just much easier.
Yeah.
And I think AI is just this very performant horizontal technology. Sure. And I think that's where people start to trip out. That's why I like your examples of the HR bot or the contract review bot or the procurement bot.
Sure.
Those are good, well-known use cases that are in almost every company.
Like an app store. Every company
exactly.
should build an app store.
Exactly. And I think that every company should probably take that list, maybe there's 10 or 20 on that list, and deploy those quickly, because then that will expose AI, hopefully good AI, to employees.
Yeah, and then they'll get more ideas.
And they'll be drawn in and get more ideas, rather than like choose your own adventure right now, which is you're giving an LLM to an employee, maybe giving them an hour of prompting training, and then saying good luck. And then you're looking at the dashboard a year from now, and you're like, oh shit, no one's using the LLM. I think these AI companies, OpenAI, Anthropic, Microsoft, and Google, I think they're looking at significant enterprise churn
I think so.
risk in a year or two, because our clients, what we're seeing is flatlining without real change management and sort of real sustained programming to drive adoption. We're seeing our clients flatline, or maybe they're the prospects. Once they're the client, we fix it.
Yeah.
But it's around 10. It's around 10%.
Yeah.
And again, why are we surprised? If you look at any organization, even government, where maybe a lot of people are just going in to pick up the check, but even in the government, in large institutions, there's always 5 or 10%.
Yeah.
Younger, growth mindset, a little more ambitious,
Yeah.
right? A little more curious. They're the ones any organization can get, I think, to 5, 7, 10.
Sure.
Pick your number around there, a level of adoption, because you've got probably those kinds of people somewhere in your org. That will not though justify paying for AI for everybody.
Sure. The
right?
disruptors,
So you got to get that to 20. What we say to clients is you must get to 30%. That's sort of likely your tipping point. That's the classic 30 to 50% tipping point. The way I think about it, is if I work for a company, again, a bigger organization, startups are different, but I work for a bigger organization, I need to be at least once a week in a meeting where someone is positively talking about an interaction with AI in the context of work.
Sure.
So when you think about the tipping point and where the change management really starts to get its own momentum and you're not pushing as much, and now the employees are pulling the AI, it's something like that, right? Just again, intuitively it makes sense to me. I'm on Zoom or I'm in an in-person office, and over the course of a week I hear at least one story where someone says, "Oh yeah, I had AI do that," or "Yeah, we fixed that with," just something like that, right? Because over the course of a year, that's a lot of data points to me. That says I probably should figure this out, right? I'm now, the organization's now shifting to be more AI enabled. If it's one a month or one every 3 months, not enough.
Not enough. Yeah.
People can stay on the sidelines and say, "Oh, this thing's going to take my job." So, and by the way, the CEO running around at the all hands meeting saying, "I love AI, you should too." I mean, just bullshit.
Yeah, it is.
Get your act together.
Greg, I've seen CEOs of billion-dollar companies just saying to their board, and then on these kind of annual meetings with the rest of the
the retreat or whatever.
We're an AI company now. Go and use AI, and that's where it stops. There's no more instruction. There's no more structure, and that drives me insane.
Yeah, it's a joke. It's a joke. And
one thing on this thing that you touched on, it has to be a grounds-up approach, but with instructions from the top. From leaders, hopefully, who are not thinking about retiring and just, whatever. One thing I encourage every company to do is to set up a sort of an ingestion portal for ideas. And then having some governance around those. Some of those ideas get approved into projects, and some of those projects can get delivered, and and then they have discussions on those portals for people to be collaborating. Oh, I need this thing that you just built. Can I have it, please? And then an app store to get built, this kind of ecosystem to kind of incentivize people to collaborate on this. Because without that communication platform, you can't really explain what's happening. You can't really see what's going on. There's no transparency.
Yeah, and I think and your early adopters or champions, they're on their own, right?
Yeah.
And they will eventually burn out.
Yeah.
So I love what you're saying there in terms of centralize this.
Yeah.
The discussion, the innovation, the request for help, try to
App
centralize
store, everything in one place.
Keep it, because otherwise it ends up being,
people, maybe even having some sort of leadership table for people who are having the best projects, the most deliveries,
absolutely,
the highest value given back to the company, the coolest project, doing awards. I think that there's a lot more companies need to do around that, and lazy leadership is really killing everything.
And I would say also, lazy leadership at the middle level.
Yeah.
Like the management is where change goes to die.
Yeah.
Managers.
Yeah.
So we really have to enable those people. They're the ones who are directly managing typically 6 to 10 people in terms of direct reports. That's where change goes to die. If your manager doesn't change their behavior and their expectations, then why should the team?
Yeah.
And so I think we need to push the change management down to that level. It can't, VPs for sure. We've got to get deeper into the organization and hold these managers accountable for the change, whatever it is the change you want, right?
Sure. And let me ask you a question. If I was to ask you, there was a massive survey done by Deloitte at board level on the number of non-execs, execs, C-level, that believe they have enough information and understanding of AI in order to govern their company properly in the new age. What percentage of this group of people do you believe said they don't have the knowledge and the understanding to govern their companies properly? What would you say it is, a gut feel?
Said they don't.
Don't.
So they were honest in their answer.
Yeah. It was anonymous.
Yeah, not many. I don't know, 20, 25%? Or
79%.
Okay, so it was anonymous, so they were actually, they honestly answered.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
79%.
Yeah, I bet if you asked them publicly, they would say, I got it. Yeah. So, okay. So
79% of board members and execs don't believe they have the information, the training, or the knowledge to govern their companies in the age of AI. 79. In the US, it's slightly better. I think it goes down to 60-something.
Okay.
But global average, 79.
Again, not surprising to me from a couple different angles. One is, where do they get the time to get that knowledge? Again, unless your CEO has said to you, okay, I'm going to build the programs and the time and the resources to give you that that knowledge so you can answer that question, in the positive. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
When do you do it? You're an executive. You're
Yeah.
under the gun every day, right? You got you got kids, and like
Yeah.
you got to fit this into your day to day, right? This is not trivial stuff. This won't be done in an hour or two.
Yeah.
And so I think that I have empathy for leadership right now who aren't being supported with resources and time. And I think the everyday employee says the same thing.
Yeah.
I've never worked harder, kind of thing, and I'm and the team got smaller, and
Yeah.
and now you're telling me be an AI champion and figure all this out, like what? And you told me my AI learning is like a class on Coursera. I mean, like
Yeah.
that's a
Terrible.
joke.
Yeah.
Like
Last thing on the enterprise
Yeah.
adoption piece. One of the biggest mistakes that I see is companies not hiring an exec specifically for AI and transformation. They give it to the CTO. CTO already has a full agenda. They give it to the CIO, full agenda. The CEO cannot be the champion of AI in a company. Of course, he or she can talk about it, very, enthusiastically.
sure.
But there needs to be a person on a daily basis that's helping manage the transformation of that company and infusing all of this energy that we've been speaking about. So is there a role missing at the C-suite?
Absolutely. There's a role missing at the C-suite and then inside of every large team. I would consider a large team or like a division or a group, 100 people or more. Every team of 100 people, of knowledge workers today, needs a head of AI. Every team of 100 needs a head of
interesting
AI.
perspective. Yeah, I never thought of it that way.
It's not going to happen otherwise.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not going to happen. And it is not a technologist. I don't think it's a technologist. It's a technology-oriented business person. It's someone who knows the work.
sure.
And so they can bring AI into the workflows and into the team. Absolutely. I'd say it also happening, again, we forget, we're only 3 years in. You and I live this stuff every day.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
we feel like we've been in this for a decade. Well,
Yeah.
you might have. I came to the party late. I'm an opportunist. I pivoted my business to AI 3 years ago. So, but when you're an entrepreneur, as you know, every year is like, like feels like 3 or something. So we've been in this, it feels like a long time. If you work in a big company, like this is like 3 years is just like yesterday, right? Not a big deal.
Yeah.
And so when you think about, when we see, what we see is there is a head of AI for some of our clients. And what they get first is money to buy software. They don't get other resources.
Yeah.
Right. So I do think, again, this is just the stage of evolution we're at. Because if you're a CEO saying to your board, I'm all in on AI, what do? You hire someone, give them that title.
Yeah.
All right. And then the next thing you do is you tell that person or the CTO, cancel some SaaS contracts. There's a bunch of software we don't use anymore, and go sign some enterprise-wide LLM licenses. So they buy Copilot or GPT Enterprise or Claude, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So we see a lot of well-intentioned companies with heads of AI who spent kind of most of the budget, buying the AI, right, or licensing the AI, and they don't realize what an enormous change management and adoption challenge this will be, and didn't get the head count yet.
Sure.
So they don't need an army, but they are going to need this head of AI, some people.
Yeah.
And I think they should hire those people and not hire Accenture personally, because Accenture will roll in, charge millions of dollars and whatever,
I can't tell you how many times we've kicked out, BCG, McKinsey, Accenture, EY,
but
all
again,
of them. Yeah.
But again, that's the playbook, right?
Yeah,
If you're a CEO, right, license software, give someone the job title,
Hire
and
a
then
big
hire
consultancy,
a big consultancy, so my board will realize I'm doing something, and I won't get fired for hiring BCG or Bain or whatever.
Yeah.
Those are the branded guys.
Yeah.
And so that's this
Politics of the
I
C-suite.
mean, that's how those companies operate. Startups, of course, as you know, that data from Carta I found. I don't know if you saw this data. The data from Carta. Carta is the stock option software that manages all the stock option sort of plans for startups.
Yeah.
So they have access to all this hiring data.
Sure.
Carta does for startups, and so Carta released this data a few months ago, which showed that the date of the first hire of the first full-time employee after the founders has been delayed by 50%. So typically a Silicon Valley startup, founders, the first sort of paid employee is 300 days later.
Because they're using AI and they don't need it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now it's 450 days later. So 150 extra days, the founders are delaying their first hire because they're using AI.
Wow.
These are the canaries in the coal mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's happening in startups not just in Silicon Valley, obviously, but
Sure,
all
sure.
over, is what will eventually happen.
Yeah.
And this is the fear about the job apocalypse, right? Is that we'll need less people
Yeah.
to build and manage companies, and that feels right to me. Again, my optimistic side is that we'll create a lot more companies.
Sure.
All those kids that you don't want them to go work for big companies.
Yeah.
My hope is that they're not playing video games all day. They're actually using these technologies to start,
Yeah.
hopefully, viable little businesses. That is, I think, one potential of AI is that it enables 2 or 3 entrepreneurs to build a nice little business, not raise venture capital maybe,
Yeah.
and not need a bigger
Not too early,
team, and all that kind of thing, right? So that's my optimistic side that AI will help us with education. We have a chronic shortage of teachers in most countries, certainly in the United States. We're down about 250,000 to 500,000 teachers, depending on the data that you look at. Same in healthcare. We have a chronic shortage of healthcare professionals. And I think so. I hope AI can be deployed to good in both those sectors of the economy, and I do think AI could unleash self-sufficient entrepreneurship for small teams without the need for venture capital.
Great. No, really good insights. One thing I wanted to end on is I want to turn you into a prediction machine, which, like you said, is super hard right now. But let's just go for it, right? Let's just go unleashed, right? Make a prediction of how the world's going to be, and you can focus on a particular area if you want, but the broader the better. How the world's going to look 5 years from now, 15 years from now. No, let's go 5, 10, and 20 years from now. Paint a picture of each of those 3 scenarios. What are we looking at?
Well, I think 5 years from now looks a lot like today, with the exception of certain industries are really contracting and under a severe amount of stress. Media, advertising would be 2 obvious examples, and other industries are really flourishing or expanding. And I think that might be the same for economies, and that's sort of how you started off. Like maybe certain economies or countries will be suffering, those fates, meaning either expanding or significantly contracting.
Sure.
But I think most of knowledge work is going to look how it looks today, repetitive and boring, and but sort of somewhat valuable. I hear you. The value of that work seems to be declining in terms of those types of repetitive roles and functions. But I think, listen, we're going to see some industries really fall off a cliff in the next couple of 3 years. This idea of the last normal year, I think for legal services,
I was about to say
for legal services, the last normal year is 2026.
Yeah.
I think these companies and governments aren't really wargaming or scenario planning. What happens when 30% of my revenue goes away?
Yeah.
Because that's what feels like to me could happen in industries like that. So 5 years to me feels a lot like what we have today. Hopefully with more Waymos on the roads.
I'll give you a quick stat.
Sure.
Since 24, every year, it's been now 2 years, the legal spend for the companies that I'm part of or own, 50% reduction every
Contracting, yeah, exactly. That's interesting. Sure.
It's a massive, massive reduction.
Right. So we'll have less lawyers in 5 years.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
I don't know. That could be a good thing as long as those lawyers can find,
honest work.
Honest work, employment somewhere else. I don't want to forecast 10 and 20 years. I really don't.
Go for it. Come on. It's just, this is safe space. You can... Nobody's right. This is the beauty of this, right? Nobody will be correct 10 years from now or 20 years from now. But what do you think? There must be...
I think the prediction I have is that we are really going to struggle with what you talked about. We're this sort of barbell economy.
You mentioned the bell. This is where we get into the bell?
Well, no, bell's later.
Bell's later, okay.
Barbell kind of economy and demographics. So what I predict is the unintended consequences of having too much of the population retiring and not working, and too much of the population underemployed and not generating enough income.
Sure.
So I think the ongoing economic and political turmoil, unfortunately, I think it will have to get worse before it gets better. And
Sure.
I think it's in the 10-year time horizon, it's still getting worse. We're not finding the solutions yet.
Got you. Okay.
So I'll be optimistic about the 20-year time horizon. New leadership has emerged, and there's a seriousness about solving some of these problems, but I think it needs to get worse before it gets better, unfortunately. And I think what I mean by that is we are concentrating wealth.
Sure.
We're continuing to concentrate wealth, and I think that problem, as I said, gets worse before it gets better. I want to talk about the bell.
Sure.
So my 3 favorite technologies this year
Okay.
or last year was Waymo, ChatGPT, and a bell. You know, the kind of bell that you see on the counter of a store or a restaurant. You know, the
Okay.
old school
Yeah.
silver bell.
The
you know,
ding, ding, ding
ding,
thing?
ding, ding, ding
Okay.
bell. Yeah, yeah.
Why?
So my wife brought that bell into our house a few months ago, our new house in San Francisco, and she put it on the hall table. I'm like, "What's that?" She goes, "It's a hug bell." I'm like, "Okay, what's that?" So, well, anybody walks by that bell, they can ding it,
Get a hug.
get a hug. No questions asked. You can't refuse. Like if you hear the ding and you're in the house, you've got to go see.
Yeah.
That was my best. That was our best technology this year.
Yeah.
You know, and when I arrived here, you gave me a hug.
Of course.
You said I'm a hugger.
Yeah.
We need more hugs.
Yeah. I agree. There's a lot of chasing of results, of, return on investment. There's not a lot of humanity in a lot of things that we're doing. It's kind of decreasing over time.
Yeah, I think we're in a tough moment. You know, I think that's right. We're in a tough moment. I mean, the world around us is pretty chaotic. And then inside of we've been talking about work, right? Inside of companies, inside of our careers, inside of our knowledge economy careers, feels like a lot of chaos is unfolding in terms of these roles, what we're doing, how we get paid, and how much is it valued.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think in those moments, don't forget to get a hug.
Well, that's a beautiful way to end. Very, very human. Thank you. Thank you, Greg, for coming. It's been great getting to know you. I'm sure we have a lot more to talk about.
Likewise.
But this has been very valuable for everyone, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.